We have the ability to control where we focus our energy and how we focus our energy. Join us for this conversation where we weave together the wisdom of Gene Key 52 with the Sabian symbols, talking about the shadow of stress, the gift of restraint, and the city of stillness. Welcome to the Free to Be Free portal, where we cheer you on for your most exquisite and empowered lives. I'm Julia Ananda, your host, and I'm here with mystical, magical, magnificent Margaret Miller.
Woohoo! Thank you, Julia.
You're
That's
welcome.
that. Oh, oh my gosh. Okay, so make me laugh right at the beginning. Good. So the sun is shining on Gene Key 52, which is the shadow of stress, the gift of restraint, and the city of stillness. And this is a very, very beautiful gene key. It's a very powerful energy to contemplate. And when we begin with this shadow of stress, we think about, stress in our own lives and how stress is affects us so powerfully physically, right? It really is a we have a physical expression of this shadow. We can tell when we're in stress, and it's so ultimately so damaging to our bodies and to our psyche as well. And one of the things that Richard Rudd talks about in the Gene Keys book and in his audios around this gene key is that stress is actually a collective energy, right? It's a combination of all of the energy fields of all of the people on the planet. And so, of course, we feel that much more powerfully if we're in a densely crowded room or if we're in a big city or, and if we're in the country, then we might feel it less. But there, with so many people on the planet, there is no place where we're not uh, sort of bathed in the energy of all of the other humans on the planet because we're connected that way. And so this stress is, it sounds kind of, maybe it sounds a little bit depressing to think we can't ever get away from it, but that's sort of just the truth. We can't ever get away from the collective energy field, right? But what we can do is is sort of transcend it, transcend the collective stress. And so stress happens in our lives when we give the authority to make decisions strictly to our mind, strictly to our thoughts, because our thoughts this are actually a product of the stress, of the collective stress, right? If we are trying to solve a problem and we're just coming from the level of mind, if we're doing anything and just coming from the level of mind, it will be thoughts that are actually creating more stress. They're stressful thoughts, right? I have to do this before that. I have to get there, get there on time. I have to, and so it is also about time. It's about that, that feeling of not having enough time, right? And or that we're going to be late, or that we're going to miss it, or that whatever it is that causes us stress and anxiety, the thoughts that we're trying to use to solve the problem are actually products of the stress itself. And so endless feedback loop. And you can see it sort of manifesting in our world with, with people with the idea that success has to do with how much we make, how much money we make, or how much we have, or how what we can buy, or what we can, what we possess, and you can also see that that is sort of a grand illusion because it doesn't eliminate the stress, it just creates more. The more the more possessions one holds, the more strings are attached to those possessions, and the more your energy is dissipated to the things around you. Right? Even in our houses, if you think about it, that's why meditation spaces and ashrams and things like that are very, very sparsely um, furnished and only with the things that are either very beautiful or needed. And I think I've talked about that in another video where that simplicity, right, that simplifying things in our environment helps to drop the level of stress because we don't have our energy being sort of drawn to these objects or possessions or things in our lives. And the same is true with our coming back to the thoughts as being sort of the creators of the stress. We can't rely on them to solve the problem, which is it's very strange way of thinking. It's like, well, then what do we do? Right? We have to, we're intelligent beings. We have to think. It's like, well, there is something that is missing when we just use our heads. And that is the energy of our heart and the wisdom of our infinite being. And so in order to move out of the shadow of stress, we begin to notice that if our thoughts are racing or we are trying to solve something, then trying to fix ourselves, trying to, like make our lives better, have more abundance or whatever it is, we have to first become the stewards of our own energy. This is something that has been very important in my life and very important and in most spiritual teachings. I don't necessarily think they use those words, but when we become the stewards of our own energy, that's saying that this is the one thing in life that we have any kind of control over, right? We don't have control over much in this life. Just, we have to face that at some point. Anything could happen. In these times, we have moved into the unknown in a way that I don't think has been seen, right, on this planet before. And because we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know, we never did, right? We don't know what's going to happen day to day. All kinds of things could interrupt our plans. And so, but there is one thing that we do have control over, and that, or have the ability to have control over. Most of the time, we don't exercise that ability, right? And, or, okay. Yeah, very often we don't utilize this tool of having stewardship over our own energy. But it is the one thing that we do have control over. It takes practice, and there's very many beautiful practices that help us to become the stewards of our own energy. I was just thinking of the Heart Math Institute. I think we'll put a link to that in the notes, because they're teaching heart coherence, and this is exactly what this gene key is about. Okay, so the gift of restraint then is the way through. We don't ever get rid of the stress because it's a collective energy field, but we can move through that stress and sort of transmute it in our own beings through the gift of restraint. And restraint kind of doesn't sound like a wonderful gift, like, it, the gift of delight is a much better sounding gift, or, the gift of, well, actually, any other gift sounds like better than restraint in some ways, but it is a very powerful thing, because it means that we've learned, or we've practiced pausing. We've practiced dropping in to our being and coming into alignment, so that our heart and our mind and our belly and our whole body is working together. And we know that in that moment, when we come into alignment, we know it. And we know that now we can operate in the world from truth, from love. Okay, so when we take that pause, even just a slight pause, something happens in your life, somebody upsets you or whatever, if you can take a couple of breaths, bring your energy down into your heart, and then respond, you're much less likely to have a knee-jerk reaction, right? So it's about responding instead of reacting. And that ultimately is our greatest responsibility, right? The ability to respond, that is responsibility. And that is the gift of restraint. Learning how to focus our energy on what is the best possible, outcome. What is the best possible energy that I can offer to the world at any given moment? And it's always love, right? It's pretty easy. It's not, it's pretty simple, but it's not that easy, I guess. It takes practice to be able to do that. But it's a lifelong practice. And as we do that, then our lives begin to flow more smoothly, right? And so another aspect of restraint is is not trying to force things to happen, like really allowing the natural rhythm of whatever it is we're doing or creating or hoping for, or whatever it is, not trying to force it to happen, not trying, it's like the old, I think there's a proverb about the farmer that goes out and tries to make his seeds grow faster. They're not sprouting fast enough, so he digs them up and, and to see what's wrong with them, right? And we really cause a lot of stress in our own lives by trying to force the issue. If something isn't happening, it might be because that seed is doing the inner work, right, under the ground, unseen, and the universal forces are collaborating, to make something happen that we can't force. And another aspect to that also is this idea, and I really highly recommend that you listen to Richard Rudd's audio, the weekly pulse on this gene key. It's very, very beautiful. Always his transmissions are incredibly beautiful and so powerful. In that transmission, Richard Rudd talks about the the beginning of any endeavor and the energy that is focused on the beginning of any endeavor. And if there is fear involved in that beginning, then the seed is sort of tainted or poisoned in a way because it it has to do with selfishness versus selflessness. Okay. So if what we're beginning, if what we're trying to do only serves us, then it's spoiled right from the start and it won't end well. And you can see it. You know, you can look back in your own life. I can look back in my life, certainly, at times where I wasn't trying to be selfish, but I was so worried or so concerned about something that I began with this energy of fear and was, like focused on what I was going to, what the outcome for me was going to be, that it never works out. So when we begin anything with the intention not focused on the sort of the grail question, which is, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? Right? How can this, whatever it is that I'm starting, how can it benefit? How can it bring benefit to the whole universe? Right? In some small way. It doesn't have to be this great event or anything, but something that is of service to more than just myself, maybe to my family or maybe to, but not just focused on what I can get from it. Right. And that when we come from that place, when our actions, when our new beginnings, uh, when our creations come from this heartfelt place that says, I have something to offer that I know will probably benefit me. I'm hoping it will benefit me, but I also am hoping that it benefits the whole. I'm also hoping that it is of service. Then we are operating with the flow and the energy of the universe, right? We're coming into the natural rhythms. And that's what happens when we move into heart coherence, right? That's what happens when we drop our energy down into our heart and we start generating the feeling of gratitude and we start, our body moves out of the stress. The other thing about this that's quite powerful is that stress is addictive. We're addicted to the hormones of stress, right? We can be, like many times we are. And we don't even recognize that we're operating on, adrenaline and cortisol and the hormones of stress. But when we pause and we come down into our hearts, we then start eliminating the stress hormones, stop being produced, and we start producing the happy hormones, right? And the peaceful hormones. And I can't remember all of the names of them in this moment, so I'm not going to go there. I'll let you look those up for yourself. But we have this beautiful pharmacy inside of our bodies that regulates that. And when we've been operating in stress for a long time, it takes some practice and some time for us to be able to stop that. But regular pauses and, you know, the connection to the breath in this gene key is very powerful, right? Because it comes, our peace and our calmness comes from the regulation of our breath. So moving on to the Siddhi of Stillness, right? Stillness is when that mind chatter has dropped into the background, when it has gone away, and we find ourselves in unity with the whole, right? When we are able to still the mind, and that comes through dropping our energy down into our bodies, focusing on our breath, right? But it's not about the body being still necessarily, because when we were talking before this recording, we, mentioned that, it could be the Buddhist monk sitting for hours or days so that his disciples have to like put something under his nose to make sure he's still breathing, right? And or it can be the Sufi, the whirling dervish, right? Spinning at such great speed for these long periods of time and finding that still point, right? Stilling the wave. I think that's the name of that's the title of this chapter in the Gene Keys book, is Stilling the Wave. And and so what happens when we attain that state is that time stops in that moment. We have the sensation of time stopping. So beautiful, beautiful gene key. That was probably a lot, but I want to talk about the Sabian symbols that are associated with this as well, and the fact that you know that the new moon is at this first Sabian symbol, Cancer 5, which is an automobile is wrecked by a train, or the older symbol of it, or the older wording of it was an automobilist racing against a train is killed. Okay, so I mean, it's not the most positive, like the gift of restraint, it's not the most positive sounding Sabian symbol, but it's talking about being aware of our actions, being aware of you could call it the karmic creation, right? The karmic uh, response to our actions, right? And it really does speak directly to this 50-second gene key when we talk about the gift of restraint. It's like, are you going to just rush forward because you think you don't have enough time or you don't have enough of whatever, or are you going to pause and and go ahead and take risks that are needed, but from the place of love and from the place of calmness and that stillness and peacefulness within your being, right? And so it's like it talks about this Sabian symbol of the automobile wrecked by a train, talks about um, creating positive karma, like remembering that every action has a reaction, and that it has a consequence. And so our thoughts, our words, and our deeds do indeed come back to us in some way. And I think that as we raise in frequency, that happens faster and faster, so that like the thought and if we have a really negative thought, we might have an instant karma, right? We might have an instant reaction to that. There might be something that happens right away. I noticed that in my own life, that it seems like it's faster and faster. If I'm not in alignment, things fall apart much faster than they used to, which is good in many ways. So it really is about the karmic reset. And this is the energy of this Cancer new moon as well, right? Because that's the degree of Cancer that the sun and the moon are in. So then Cancer 6, birds feathering their nests. And this is, oh, it's beautiful. It's the instinctual dedication of the self to new forms of life, to new creations, preparing for a new life, preparing for a new world, preparing for a new society, right? This is uh, the many birds feathering their nests. Okay. And the shadow, these things can have shadow sides too, because you can see the feathering their nests sounds like, you know, gaining more, but it's really about the preparation, making sure that we have what is required and that we're in the proper energy to begin, right? Because they're making a nest to lay their eggs and for the new life to come in, right? And they're making it soft and they're making it beautiful and they are doing what they do as birds, right? And so that's Cancer 6. Then Cancer 7 is two nature spirits dancing under the moonlight. And it's really talking about the play of the invisible forces in nature that are always active, that are always active in our lives. And that if we utilize, weaving it in with the gene key, right? If we utilize the gift of restraint and we allow these invisible forces to play out their dance, to dance in the moonlight, then what we create becomes much more beautiful and much more magical, right? Than if we were to try to force something or to do it on our own. Because we're never alone in this, right? That's an illusion. We're never alone in this. So Cancer 8 then is a group of rabbits dressed in human clothes, walk as if on parade. I love this one too. And so it's talking about the tendency to emulate higher forms, right? If you want to get good at something, who are you going to imitate? Like if you're a skier, one really good way to get better at skiing is have somebody better than you ski in front of you and imitate them. Try to imitate them. Right? That was back in my skier days. But really, in any endeavor, in any activity, we want to imitate or begin to emulate the ones who have brought it to whatever it is to its highest level, right? That way we can ensure that it's going to be the best that we can offer, right? So then Cancer 9, a small naked girl leans over a pond trying to catch a fish. I love these Cancer images. So it's talking about curiosity and innocence and reaching towards the new experience with the mind of a child, like being able to have our new beginnings happen with that innocence, which is, you think of children, they're not still at all, but they haven't developed the small child has not developed the critical thinking that and the the complex thought patterns that cause so much stress in our lives, right? They haven't gone there yet. So really they are, I think, in the city of stillness as they go about their play, right? And so then Cancer 10, another beautiful symbol, a large diamond in the first stages of cutting, in the first, sorry, Cancer 10, a large diamond in the first stages of the cutting process. So this is really another beautiful symbol because how is a diamond formed? Under huge pressure, under huge amounts of stress, right? That diamond is formed. And and so then the cutting process has to be done so carefully and with such precision, right? That, in order for it to become this incredible jewel that is so valued, it has to come from incredible amounts of restraint, right? Incredible amounts of training and perfection. And so what a beautiful symbol, right? And putting all of those together, uh, if you look, you have this, you have the train wreck, which sounds, you know, it's kind of like a warning in a way, right? It's a warning. It's saying, hey, recognize that what you do has consequences. The actions that you're going to take, the thoughts that you're thinking, the way that you're thinking about whatever it is you're going to begin is going to have an effect on the results, right? And then moving into and then so then how do we prepare? So the birds feathering the nests, how do we prepare? Right? So we prepare carefully and we prepare with love and with expectation for this beautiful thing that's going to happen. Then we allow nature to do its work with the nature spirits dancing, right? And then we emulate the dancing, the marching rabbits in human clothes, right? We emulate the highest expression of that. And then we um, come back to our innocence. We come back to our sense of wonder as we reach towards these experiences, right? And then I'm sorry, I can't remember all of them, but uh, and then and then we're there getting ready to cut the diamond, right? What a beautiful set of Sabian symbols.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for weaving the Sabian symbols with the gene key wisdom. It's amazing to have it. Are the gene keys an astrological tool as well as the Sabian symbols?
Yes, yes, yeah, absolutely. They are based on the Chinese I Ching and astrology,
Okay.
right? Right, and obviously the human genome.
And the
Right.
human genome, right? Right.
Yeah, it's the most incredible weaving of wisdom that I've ever come across. The gene,
Yes.
yeah,
And the wisdom for this week, it's so empowering. It's so empowering to know that we can pause and choose how we're focusing our energy, how we're going to react, and we can also choose how we're going to begin
yeah,
what we're creating, begin a new project, begin a new effort. Yeah.
yeah.
And Margaret, I really love that question of how can I serve the best today? How can I serve the whole, today instead of, because it really does move you out of fear.
Yeah, there can't be any fear attached to that.
Yeah.
because it's a question. It's a question of love, right?
Right, right. Yeah. Margaret, thank you for this beautiful, beautiful reading of the insights of the week. Very, very powerful, very, very empowering.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
And to our audience, please engage in the comments. We're so interested to hear your thoughts on how you are pausing and choosing to react and choosing to spend your energy. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
thank you.